The number you have dialed has been changed. The new number is...
Cool.
So, can you just introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, sure. My name is Matthew Wallden. I'm an osteopath and a naturopath and a Czech practitioner. I'm the managing director of Primal Lifestyle. So, my background is that I trained as an osteopath from '93 to '97. Went on to do a master's degree between '99 and 2000, and then after that I found out about the Czech training and went through the Czech training between 2001 and 2005. And since then I've taught for the Czech Institute right the way through to now. So it kind of brings us through to now. But we got the contract to distribute the Vibram Fivefingers from June 2007. So we've been doing that for just 3.5 years now. Yeah.
How did you get involved with the Vibram Fivefingers?
Well, I was teaching a course on rehabilitation and exercise for the Czech Institute that I just mentioned, and I was in New York City, and one of the students walked in wearing a pair, and so immediately kind of saw them and was impressed, and basically said to him, where did he get them from? And he told me to shop in New York, and he could take me down there. So we went down, tried a pair on. It took me about 10 minutes to get my first pair on. I remember the shop assistant sort of leaving me to it to get them on, and then and then that was it really. I was hooked. I suppose at the time there was a sort of bit of synchronicity because firstly I was writing a chapter on exercise rehabilitation for a natural medicine textbook, and so I looked at some of the benefits of sort of natural rehabilitation, including barefoot walking. So I had a load of references to do with barefoot walking, barefoot running, and the benefits of that. And then this guy walked in wearing his shoes, so it really sort of tied in with that. And on top of that, because I was in New York, I had flown over literally the day before I was teaching this course. So I woke up on the morning that the course was running and thought, right, I've got to try and reset my body clock. So I went out for a run through Central Park, and I remember I bought a pair of Nike Frees, the shoes that are designed to be like barefoot running, and so I was wearing them through the park, and I was really thinking about how the toes are so important in function, and how they're almost like playing a piano, and they kind of as your foot strikes the ground, they kind of feel the ground as you go. So I was thinking about that, and then on the train or on the subway down to the class, I started writing an article which I called Gaits Digitally Remastered, because I was thinking about the toes and the importance of the toes in gait and in walking and running. And so then I got to class, and there's this guy wearing these shoes, and so it was pretty amazing. So at that point, I approached Vibram to say that I thought it was a great product, and if they could send me some spare shoes, then I would take some pictures of some people exercising in them and put them into my rehabilitation chapter. And that was really where it all kicked off, because it turned out they didn't have a European distributor, or I should say a UK distributor, and that they hadn't really realised at that point the rehabilitation and performance benefits. They had primarily designed the shoe for sailing and for walking and getting the sensation of being barefoot, but they hadn't realised there were all these biomechanical advantages. So I was in this sort of the first wave of people that worked in biomechanics and rehabilitation and performance conditioning to say this is a fantastic product for all of those things. So that's really where it came from.
I'm thinking that you had an idea similar to the Vibram Fivefingers before you actually found out about them.
Yeah, I did. Back in, I think it was 1998 or 1999, I was reading a journal, and it had a description of the anatomy of the foot, and I was looking at the picture of the foot, and I was thinking, well, that doesn't look anything like a healthy foot. And I was waiting for the description underneath to explain this is a dysfunctional foot. It's got hallux valgus and various other problems with it. But the caption underneath was just explaining this is the anatomy of the foot, and I was looking at it thinking, well, this is quite bad, because if I was a medical student looking at that, I would think that's what a foot should look like, but in fact it was a foot that was kind of moulded to the shape of a shoe. It wasn't a natural looking foot at all. And I was fortunate enough to have had a couple of teachers at osteopathic college who had shown me slides of what people's feet look like when they haven't worn shoes, so I knew what a natural foot looked like. So I was kind of a bit taken aback by that, and it inspired me to write to Adidas actually. I got the letters here that essentially I wrote to them in 2000, and here's the letter I got back from them, which basically was an idea submission. And what it was about was, the reason I wrote to Adidas was that they designed a shoe at the time which was taekwondo, so it was very flat to the ground, very good for proprioception, probably 5 or 6 millimeters thick. And so I wore those the whole time because they felt great. But Adidas had this whole thing about trying to let the foot function as it was supposed to, rather than sort of adding stuff into their shoes to add to the foot. So I thought they were the right company to write to, and what I wrote to them suggesting was to do something similar to their taekwondo shoe, but to allow the toes to space apart, so they had individual pockets. So it was very much like the Fivefingers, to the extent that when I saw the Fivefingers in New York, I actually thought maybe Adidas had, passed on the details to Vibram, and maybe they had some kind of corporate connection. We were trying to do it through the back door. But as you know, there's a whole story behind the Vibram Fivefingers and how they were developed by a guy called Robert Fleary, around the same time actually. When I'd written the letters and I got the letter back saying basically thanks very much, it's not the direction we're going at the moment, but we'll keep it in our files. And then the legal department sent a similar letter, so I got the 2 letters from Adidas, and I thought, well, I've kind of tried my best and it hasn't happened, so I just let it go. But then 7 years later, 2006, there's some guy walks into the classroom I'm teaching with basically what I had in my mind's eye. So as you can imagine, I kind of feel a certain proportion of ownership for it, even though obviously the Fivefingers aren't anything to do with me in the first instance. I do feel that they're a bit more special to me. I guess that makes me feel like I've got a bit more ownership of the whole project than I might have done otherwise if it was just purely someone else's idea that I hadn't thought of before. So.